Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of Creatives on the Come Up. I hope you are enjoying the podcast. In this episode, I am joined by Caleb Y. Moon. Caleb is an actor and filmmaker who learned the ins and outs of the film industry by working on the job rather than the more traditional route of film school. He began his acting career in 2021 as a background actor and has since starred in many award-winning independent short films. He hopes to inspire others to pursue their creative passions without the fear of judgment and societal norms. Let's hear what Caleb has to say about his journey.
Welcome to the stage where dreams take flight, where every brushstroke, every note, every line becomes a beacon in the night. Creatives on the come up, shine bright. We're the ones who dare to dream, turning visions into what they seem. With every step we break the mold, our stories bold and gold. Creatives on the come up, we rise. With passion in our hearts, we never compromise. From the canvas to the mic, we make our mark in the world of art. We leave our spark. From the streets to the studio, we find our way. With every challenge, we find a way to stay. Our creative, a force that can't be tamed. In the game of life, we're not just players, we're names. So join us on this journey, where dreams are made. Creatives on the come up, we're here to stay. With every episode, we'll light the way. Creatives on the come up every day.
Hi, my name is Caleb Y. Moon. I am an actor that lives in Atlanta, Georgia. I also am a filmmaker. I started my acting journey in 2021 and just continue to love it and fall in love with all sides of the film industry, and is also producing now 2 short films that were filmed earlier this year, and now we're in post-production for both of those.
Exciting stuff. Can you go into a little bit about what made you want to go into acting, or what interests you about the film industry in the beginning?
Yeah, sure. I started in 2021 in January, and as we all know, it was COVID time for everyone, and I was working 2 jobs, one office job and a server at a restaurant. I didn't go to college, didn't really want to take that step without really knowing what I wanted to do, and so I decided to just work. And as I worked, I had what I like to call a quarter life crisis moment, and was like, oh, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. And so I was just scrolling on Instagram one day and found someone putting a casting call out for a background gig. And then I started to do more research and found that it was really easy to just get on set as an extra in Atlanta. Didn't know that Atlanta was one of the biggest film hubs in the world, and just started applying and just got my first step into it. In January was my first gig, and I really fell in love with it. And I don't know, just seeing like everyone working and seeing the film machine go just really had like sparked something in me that I didn't really feel about any other possible job prospects. And then I just continued to do it.
Yeah, that's cool. I bet a lot of people can relate to, not knowing what you want to do with their life. And I know for me, like, film has been something that I always enjoyed as a viewer, but I never thought that I could be in the spaces to actually create film. And so figure out, like, when did you realize that, wow, I can actually make a career out of this?
I don't know if I really had that kind of moment where it was all of a sudden from like transitioning from a hobby to a career moment, because I didn't really have anything else lined up. I do photography, and during that time I also was doing graphic design here and there, but there were just more freelance stuff, doing favors for people rather than me really considering it as a career, just because, making a business is really difficult, and being an entrepreneur is difficult, which is ironic because acting is a lot like, having your own business. And anything in the film industry, I think every job in the film industry is very similar to starting your own business and being an entrepreneur. But because I didn't really have a solidified backup or solidified path that I was already going to go, when I started and found love with acting, I think I just knew that this would be the thing that I would pursue for the foreseeable future. And so I just threw myself into classes, online classes, and then an in-person class when they opened up, and just continued to move forward with that, and just naturally had a desire to learn about the other aspects of film, with like anything from the gaffer to what the PA does to what a first AD does, what a cinematographer means, what a grip means. And as I continued to do that, it just ingrained in me more and more that I wanted something more than just acting as well, and just wanting to tell stories. Um, you know, so it felt like a more of like a natural progress. I'm someone who, once I commit to something, immediately I'll just like commit. So like I think within the first couple months of me starting doing that background gig, I bought like so much self-tape equipment and like, and a really expensive mic because I want my sound in my self-tapes to sound good. Um and yeah, I think I just continue to fall more and more in love with it, rather than having that moment of, oh, this is my career. I think I started to treat it as my career from day one, which I think also helped me progress faster, than other people who maybe, started out as a hobby, for others, which is completely fine too.
Yeah, I guess like too is like you have to like invest in yourself, especially as a creative, before other people will would invest in you. Um, so that's interesting. Do you feel there is a disconnect between being an actor and like like a crew member on the film?
I think the biggest thing for not just between crew and cast, but um, anyone in general working in any industry, is mutual respect. I find a lot of the times there will be, sometimes actors who, because they don't really know what goes on, they are constantly asking questions, or constantly having, feels like, oh, something is wrong, or they're anxious, and or they just don't know when to say or when to stop joking around, or um but uh I think it goes the same on the other side, where I've seen like crew members too who, don't really respect, an actor's process, where let's say there's like a really emotional scene, and the crew is also like laughing and joking around, and it really hinders an actor's process to go into the emotional depths of the character. I think, the best thing that I found for myself to really interact with crew members well is to um really try to observe and understand what is going on with what they're doing, and have like a genuine interest. Asking questions at the right time really really helps, because I think everyone who is in this industry, who loves what they do, loves to talk about it. And if you find the right person and the right time to chat with the sound mixer, or the grip, or the gaffer, and be like, hey, what got you started into this industry, and why do you love it, what are your passions, what do you want to do, what are your goals? And I think being on that side, and asking those questions really helps bridge that mutual respect on both ends. It's a lot easier to be nice and to be kind to people that you know. And I think if you're able to do that, and it's really beneficial to, show yourself and open yourself up to people around you that you're working with, and also that will allow them to do the same with you, and it just creates a better working environment, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is there, do you have an example of like one of those moments where like we felt like the crew and the actors were both respecting each other, like in your experience? Is there like an example?
I mean, you and I, we met on set.
True, true, true.
Yeah. We were on The Last Supper, an independent feature film, and you were, if I'm not mistaken, you were PAing, right? And that was probably one of your first sets, from what I remember. And yeah, I think that whole set, it was just, everyone was kind and excited to be there and excited to work on something creative and something that was passionate. And um if I don't know why you chose me to be on this podcast, but I imagine it had something to do with our rapport and us having conversation. And for me seeing you more than just like the person who is asking, do you need water? You have a life. You're more than just a production assistant. And I think because I wanted to seek out those types of connections and foster those relationships, I imagine that's probably why you were like, oh, I think Caleb be a good guest. I imagine, I hope, but I think that's like a perfect example. It's like you never know where um you know your relationships that you foster will take you. It may not foster at all and not go anywhere. It may just be a social thing, which is amazing. But it can also be a career helper as well. But I think definitely, like, every set I've been on, I've tried to foster those relationships, and I benefited greatly from them, not just career wise, but also just friendship wise.
I guess, can you talk about like your process when you go on set? Like what kind of help, I guess, or what helps you get into character? Like what steps do you take before, I guess, you start rolling? Yeah.
So a lot of the preparation, as I've continued to act, I've realized happens before, where you are essentially creating this human being that does not exist in the world. And as humans, we react to things and we say the things that we do without thinking so much at the time, because we are fully realized people. And so for the goal for me as an actor is to become and create this fully fledged person before I get onto set, so that when I'm on set, then I can react and just be um that person when the cameras start rolling. And I think you know a lot of the times, there's a lot of different ways to go about acting and going about portraying a character. But for me, it's really just about being real and being honest and truthful and sincere about the words and the actions and the things that I'm doing as a character on screen, rather than just saying the lines or you know I think that's what makes it fun, if it's real and honest.
In your experience, what has the collaboration between an actor and a director been like for you?
It varies a lot. I've been thankful and lucky enough to have worked on a bigger set recently for Tubi film that's going to be released on Tubi in December. And it was a film commissioned by Fox. So it was not like a huge set, but it was a pretty big set with a lot of crew, and the director. It was his first time directing a feature film, Justin Ching. And he, I think every director and actor, they have a sort of relationship, and it really does depending on the type of person that they are versus the type of person that you are. I remember him. He is a I learned that he was a documentary filmmaker, and so he really, I've noticed, loves to just kind of let the scenes play out and just kind of allow you to have the freedom to just do whatever you feel as a character in that moment to do. And it allows him, I think, to capture those realer moments. Yeah, I've also worked with directors who are a lot more um, hands-on, where, you'll have a couple meetings, throughout the process, and you'll have rehearsal times, and you'll have long conversations about the character. And I enjoy both types of directors. I think there's strengths and weaknesses to both types of directing, but I think really all it comes down to is just communication and you just being honest. I think as an actor, I've definitely had to learn how to communicate and advocate for myself as an actor on set, where I would be like, hey, I feel like it would be cool if the character did this thing, or um, and you can kind of get a feel for it depending on what project it is. Ultimately, film is a collaboration. It's a collaboration of many tens of to hundreds of people, even thousands, and I think if you find the right project and you find the right director, you can really create something beautiful, um, working with the director and working with everyone else in crew, um, and just again, it all comes down to mutual respect and kindness.
What advice would you give to someone thinking about becoming an actor?
I would say learn, really learn, and not just learn about the craft of acting, because that's something that you'll inevitably do, or you would hope to do, taking classes and being around people, but also learning about the industry and the other jobs that people have. I've noticed that, they're the actors who don't really step outside of their acting realm, and they just kind of stay in there. They don't have a full understanding of what it really takes to make a film, and you just inevitably don't really have as much knowledge, and therefore then it's harder for you as a person who's coming onto this environment, who for the most part, a lot of actors are on set last. We are the last to get on the production and the first to leave the production. Everyone else, like, they start pre-production weeks if not months before, and stay on weeks if not months after. And I think definitely there's been so many moments where, as I've continued to learn about the other jobs on set, it's helped me as an actor to feel comfortable in my environment no matter what set I'm on, because I understand the lingo, I understand what's going on, but also helped me with my acting, because I also just have a mind of, oh, I feel like I know what they're looking for. I know um I know what I have to be aware of as an actor. Blocking, which is how an actor moves on a scene, throughout a scene, is super important for continuity, for an editor to match shots from the previous shots, because scenes are not, most of the time, are not filmed at the same time. You do multiple takes and different, with a camera on the first character, and then you do the scene again with the camera on the second character. And if you are not aware of your body and you're not aware of what your movements are, it's really hard to match those things together. And I really saw that as when I was editing a couple of my projects, and really helped me to know, oh, this is what is important. These are also things that I need to be aware of as an actor. I think outside of that, not being afraid to live life and just observe life. I forgot, I don't know who said this, but I've heard this saying throughout um, my journey, is that an actor's um, the greatest studying an actor can do is live life, because we're trying to replicate life, we're trying to replicate human emotions, and if you don't live life and replicate those, and go through those emotions, then it's going to really be hard to do that when you're on a set, and when you're in a rehearsal space. So I would say just being conscious of people around you and yourself and the way that you feel and the way that you perceive others and the way others perceive you, and it really helps me to um just learning to be in the moment, because I've seen it before and I've lived it before.
How do you separate, I guess, yourself from your character that you're bringing to life, or is there a separation?
Mm, that's a question that I don't know if I can fully say I know the answer, just because I haven't done as much work as I would like to, or have done as much, been in a character's shoes for more than like a week. That the longest I filmed, I think, consecutively was 4 days, and that was the feature film that I was on. In class, I know that, you know, um, one of my coaches, Bruce Blackshear, we did an intensive where we broke down a script and did a scene every week, and we would be off book. We would memorize 12 to 15 pages every new pages every week, and stay in that character's shoes throughout. I think though, every actor is different. For me, um, I find that it's not too difficult to separate myself from a character, uh just because I kind of see it a lot where my person who Caleb is versus who this other character is. It's a different like levels of, like if you had a volume knob of like nice and mean, and I would like to think that a lot of times my nice volume is like pretty high. But if my character is more on the mean side, a little bit more sarcastic and dry, then those levels would be not like would be higher. But we all have the capacity to feel those feelings and to be those kinds of people. We're all different people too. We speak to our parents very differently than we speak to our siblings versus our friends versus strangers. Um, and so, you know, I think that's, for me, it's not too difficult to go in and out of character. But I imagine that if like there was a character where I would have to do a lot of work in the future, just dive in, that it would be harder for me to separate. And I hear of actors all the time where they find it difficult to like separate themselves from the character. And I think what I hear for them is like they make sure to live life. They make sure to figure out who, Caleb is, to figure out who they are first, instead of so that they know they have something to go back to, um, instead of just like, diving into, you know, a certain character and without really having a frame of reference to fall back on. And I think that's, you need to live life. And I think like art and acting, it's a job. It's important. It's more than a job to most people. But um, I think being a person and being human is so much more important, especially as an actor, because you don't want to lose sight of that um, when you when you act, because that's all what acting is about. It's about being human.
I think that's good advice for anyone, even in film industry or not. You gotta know yourself. So, if you would describe your career, how what point in your career would you say that you're at right now?
Hmm. I would still say I'm in like the beginning stages. I didn't go to film school. I didn't go to college. And so throughout the years, I've, put myself through my own film school, taking classes, acting classes, and also really involving myself on set. So I have done like first AD work. I've done script supervising work. I, producing and doing all the jobs that I can at least once, so I know what it is. And I put myself through my college experience, quote unquote. And I've been lucky and grateful enough to be signed with my agency since last December. And now that I have more access as an actor to, more bigger projects, more studio projects, I I'm excited to see where that takes us, especially now that all the strikes are over. Um, but yeah, I would say I'm still in the beginning processes of like my career. I think, the past couple of years before, the 4 years before, were more of just education, where I was trying to teach myself and learn everything that I could. Um, but I think I'm also in the place where, because thankfully my journey has been in a lot of ways very, very, you know, quick, where, you know, other people, it might take them a lot longer to be where I am now, because I didn't do theater in high school or either. I didn't really know anything about the industry before I started. And um, I, yeah, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I think ultimately I feel that, you know, I'm also at a place now where I'm itching to write my own stories and itching to create my own things, and um to see, what else there is. I would love to direct one day, and write as well. Also those things as a job is my goal in the future. But for now, I think acting is my main priority.
That's awesome. And I think people forget too that success doesn't happen overnight. Like there's um that's kind of why I wanted to have this podcast too, because I feel like people, you always hear about the success, but you don't hear about what it takes to get to that success. So
No, I love what you're doing. I actually, I'm someone who has like a lot of ideas, and maybe doesn't really fully execute all of them. And I've been wanting to do like a film podcast as well, similar to what you're doing here. And it's inspiring because, you know, all the successes are good, but what about the process? What about the journey? What about, you know, when I hear about someone going through the same things I am, who's not a big mega star, it's a lot more comforting. It's a lot more relatable. It allows me to learn to be okay with where I am in my career. But also, I think it's important because there is this Hollywood agenda, my theory, where there is like, oh, it can happen overnight, because that's romantic. It's romantic to have this idea where one day you're unknown, and then the next day just magically you are on top of the world in your career. And it's unrealistic, but it makes for good stories. It makes for, good press. But I think it's important to see the people and listen to the people who are like on that journey, because um especially for people who want to start and who don't know how to get into it, it makes it more manageable, not as scary. And I think that's something that I would love for, my journey, and to inspire others who, you know don't really have a plan, or who maybe wanted to do it but were too scared because um that's not it's not a realistic job. It's realistic. It's hard, but it's realistic. It can be.
true. So you talked about how you wanted to write and direct. What type of stories do you think that you would write about?
Mm, I really like thought provoking things. I don't really have a specific genre. I think any genre, whether it be horror, comedy, romance, they all have the potential to change like someone's perception about the world. And for me, as I grew up on books. I didn't really grow up on movies, so I have like this huge list of movies that I had to catch up on. And every single time someone asked me if I watched so and so or this classic, they always like open their mouths super wide because I haven't watched it. But stories for me, it comes down to me learning about um other people, and I loved learning about someone's life through these books. And as I got older, as I got access to the internet and watching TV shows and movies, it was so inspiring to feel um moved and changed by something that was like fictional, or and I think it's really helped me frame the kind of person that I am, today, alongside with my childhood and the real people in my life. I think that movies do have allows you to see outside of your current environment and allows you to see more of the world. And today we have social media, and that's a huge avenue where that happens compared to, like, before I was even born. And um but I think that's kind of, for me, it's like it doesn't matter necessarily what the genre is, what the story is, but I do know that I love to make myself think and learn about a different thing, and change and perceive things differently than the way that I perceived it before. And if I can write something and show people that, that's all that I can ever, ask for.
Could you talk about like how you got through the strike, the well, I guess both strikes. How was that time for you?
I think for me it didn't affect me, you know, in a way, because that's all I knew, really. I started in 2021, where it was already a slow time. The industry, COVID tests weren't new to me because that's how I started, and then I look back and people were like, "Oh yeah, I remember when we didn't have to go do, 5 COVID tests to be on set for one day," but I didn't have a frame of reference. And during that time the industry was also really, really slow, you know so as I continued to progress and work in the industry, there was no, like, for me, oh, I'm supposed to get this many jobs this year, or I'm supposed to get this many auditions, just because I never knew when I would. Because as soon as the the COVID was over, or, like, still going on, but as soon as the brunt of it kind of died down, the strikes happened, the writer strike, and then the actor strike. And I would see people who, some of my friends who really, relies on acting as a primary source of income, they struggled a lot more than I did, because they were used to a certain, level of production and a certain level of auditions and bookings. Um, but the state of the industry right now is that studios are not making as much films and shows as they used to. I think because they lost a lot of money during the strikes and COVID. Um, but that's my normal. So um I think for me it's not like it wasn't as stressful. I think I definitely had a plan. I definitely had I thought, like, if there's a strike, this recent strike, if that happened, I was like, okay, I'm gonna probably go to the UK so I can study for a bit, because I've always admired how UK actors and their process, um and their craft, and I've always wanted to learn in that environment, because I think the culture is different there than here. For me, it's like I didn't really have that moment of fear per se. Yeah, fear for other things, but not about acting, because I wasn't expecting much, and I didn't really, for most of that time I didn't have an agent. So um it was more like, there were still student films going on, there were still independent projects, even more so. And that's kind of where I was able to stretch myself as a creative, rather than, on a big studio set.
Most people might not know that like how much of a gig economy it is working in film, because one day you could have a job and then the next day you can't, and so it's like it's a revolving door. I've been learning.
Yeah, and actors, I think, compared to everyone else in crew, actors are a lot more used to not working. I've learned that as I continued, but people who do hair and makeup and they do sound, those, like, the rest of crew, they will continue to work throughout the year as productions. And they, I've heard of people who had to quit their jobs as crew because there wasn't enough productions to keep them going. But actors, you may work once a year, and then not work again for the next year, and we're used to that. So, a lot of actors, they have second jobs, like they work at restaurants. So I think, yeah, definitely it's still hard, don't get me wrong. But definitely I think there is that difference in the level of preparation um that a writer or a gaffer or grip has versus like an actor has in terms of not working.
You kind of talked about it, but what point in the career would you say I'm successful, or like I've made it? Like what point do you think in the career that would happen for you?
I don't know. I actually had this conversation with my friend who is a music artist, and she's pursuing music, and she writes her own song, singer songwriter, um uh Sweet Rain on Spotify. Yeah, that's where you find her. But but we had that conversation about success and what it means to be successful. And for me, I think it's a dangerous idea to have I to just have a general idea of success, rather than setting yourself what are the tangible things that you feel you know would be successful to you, because it's different for everyone. For some people it's about the amount of money you make in a year. Other people, it might be whether you have a house, or whether you get married, or you have kids, or if you're content. But I think humans, naturally, we are all very uncontent, and we always want more. And I've definitely heard of stories where there would be these actors or these musicians who would win Oscars or Grammys, and they they get up on stage and they feel so overjoyed that they've won this award that is such an achievement in their career. And then immediately after they receive that award, they're like, great, this is great, what's next? And when you don't prepare yourself, I think, for I haven't won an Oscar yet, hopefully, but but I don't think I want that to be my basis of like success, because if what happens after that, and especially as a creative, you get to continue to work. I think for me, it's I don't know if I found or figured out like what success means to me. All I know is that I'm doing what I love to do, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's um, instead of looking towards the future, which I do all the time, and I wonder what it could be and all the things that I could be doing, and I definitely can get in my head about um feeling inadequate about where I am now. But I try to just be in the moment, and savor the process, because at right now, like for me, I'm privileged enough to be able to pursue this career, um without feeling super stressed out. I'm not in danger of like losing my house. I live in my parents' home, and so for me, it's like I don't have to pay rent, thank God. But for other people, it's different. But for me, like in this moment, for now, I'm happy and I'm able to pursue something that I love. It doesn't mean that I am where I want to be, um career wise, but I don't think I ever will. I think there will always be like a what's next. I think there will always be what's more. So instead of looking towards the future of what could be my success, maybe I should look into if I'm happy about what I'm doing now, and that could be my success.
Sadly, that is the end of this episode, but thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation that I had with Caleb. And I hope that you are encouraged by this episode, and that you never stop learning, never stop growing, and have a go-getter mentality. And I hope you join me next week with my conversation with Asia Christmas. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. And until next week, this has been Creatives on the Come Up.
Welcome to the stage where dreams take flight, where every brushstroke, every note, every line becomes a beacon in the night. Creators on the come up, shining bright. We're the ones who dare to dream. Creators on the come up, shining bright. We're the ones who dare to dream. Turning visions into what they seem. With every step we break the mold. Our stories bold and gold. Creators on the come up, we rise. With passion in our hearts, we never compromise. From the canvas to the mic, we make our mark. In the world of art, believe our spark. From the streets to the studio, we find our way. With every challenge, we find a way to stay. Our creativity, a force that can't be tamed. In the game of life, we're not just players, we're named. So join us on this journey where dreams are made. Creators on the come up, we're here to stay. With every episode we light the way. Creators on the come up every day.